Welcome everybody. Thanks for being here. This is Talks by Softbinator, the event number 180, which is quite amazing, to be honest. It's been 12 years, almost actually 11 years of Talks by Softbinator, but 12 years since we started this journey. So organizing 180 plus events, because we also did some other things like hackathons and some conferences. But Talks by Softbinator was mostly about this kind of event, like meetups between 30 to 100 participants talking about different topics. Uh, it's been a while. Basically, we took a maybe 1 year break or something. Don't ask why. There was a crisis in tech, and because of that, low budgets. But now tech is rising again, so everything is good from that perspective. Just joking, but half joke, half true fact. So tonight we're gonna talk. We have three extraordinary speakers, four if I include myself, but I'm talking about the extraordinary guys here. Uh, Unfortunately, one of the speakers that was announced, Daniel Rusen, he flew back from Poland, I guess from Warsaw, but had some delays, and he said he's gonna get here around 8:30. So we decided to tonight wait for him and um, just start without him. Not sure if he's still gonna come or not, but I think we have enough stories to share, even if Daniel from Microsoft is gonna miss, unfortunately, this event. So just to do a short intro, my name is Daniel. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Softbinator, and we have kind of two Softbinators here. One is the foundation, the NGO that's taking care about this kind of events and other things that we do for the software community in Bucharest, and not just in Bucharest, I also in Romania. And another Softbinator, which is a, let's say, for profit. Fortunately, we're gonna make a profit each year for profit business. It's called Softbinator Technologies, and basically I'm kind of involved in both things. It's called Softbinator because back in 2011, when I started with this idea of kind of building a sort of LinkedIn for software engineers, we wanted to go to raise money from one accelerator and go to a program like that. There are no such things in locally here in Romania, and we heard about Y Combinator. So we were thinking, fresh graduates from the university were thinking, like, if we are going to name the company Softbinator, that sounds like Y Combinator. The guys from Y Combinator will say, these guys really want to get here. So they even kind of use this Binator part in their name. So of course they didn't accept us for that, and they rejected the proposal. But in the end, Softbinator was a unique name, and it's really a unique name. So everything on the internet related to Softbinator, it's really about this company or about this kind of events. We have here Alex. He's you can start with some round of applause because it's gonna be more. So Alex has an amazing career. He's gonna tell us about this. He has an amazing career in tech. Currently, he's working with Stripe, and as I think everybody from this room knows, Stripe opened an office here in Romania last year. Right?
Yesterday we opened the office.
Yesterday,
Actually,
yeah, right. They inaugurated the new office.
yeah.
Exactly. We have Daniel. Daniel also has so we have two Daniels to Alex. Daniel has an amazing career. I know him for a lot of years. So he worked in a startup called VectorWatch. Then Vector was acquired by Fitbit. After that, Fitbit was acquired by Google. So he worked in all these companies. I think he spent some months, not sure if years, in Oracle as well. So mostly related with West Coast and companies coming from West Coast in general. And then we have Alex. He's co-founder and CTO kind of, I'm not sure if to say former, ex-co-founder and CTO at Beware, which is an amazing startup in the blockchain space, one of the few cool blockchain startups that we used to have here in Romania, but this these guys didn't like their company anymore, so just joking. They made an amazing exit, so they sold the company to Alchemy. Alchemy is maybe the largest player in their field. So Alex is gonna tell us more about this. Of course, another company coming from West Coast. So basically, today we're gonna talk why West Coast companies, Seattle, San Francisco Bay Area, or maybe if we go South California, LA, San Diego, why these kind of companies that basically are 10 hours away from our current time zone are opening offices here, are acquiring startups here, and basically why this number of companies coming from the US is really growing and has been growing in the past years, and it still continues to grow. Definitely, there is some success here, and this is why we are here today to talk about this. So enough with the introduction. I know it was long, but we'll start with the questions. We have two types of questions. Some mild questions and some, I'll say, uncomfortable questions, like red questions. If you watch some shows on TV, next urmează întrebarea roșie. So we'll have these kind of questions as well. But I start with, of course, with the mild questions because. So I start with Daniel. I don't want to go Daniel, very, very simple. What's your secret to making cross-continental collaborations so efficient? Because you've been working in now three companies coming from the West Coast.
So I think there's two aspects to it. There's emotional aspect to it, and there, of course, are processes and the things you can work on. I'll go also into the processes, but I think those you can find easily searching online. Of course, you'll get a lot of brainstorming ideas of what you can do. But on the, let's say, emotional human side, it's very important to establish trust as first. So I think a lot of the things, and I'll also invite my fellow colleagues here, a lot of the things that are getting built is through somebody trusting somebody else first, and that trust then gets transferred to a site or to a team. So, and I think that's why the early employees are so important, because they are establishing that base of trust with, let's say, remote offices, so on and so forth. So I would say establishing trust. Through my experience, the best way to establish trust is to get to know the people that are involved, so actually spending time in person. And establishing trust is also done by, saying that you'll be doing that something, and then showing that you have done that something. Do that for a couple of times, and you'll establish trust in a specific area. I don't know, delivery, product definition, engineering, things around this. So I would say that's a missing ingredient apart from the processes. And of course, you can go into the processes, and there's a lot of async collaboration. It depends also on the time zones. If there are harder time zones, like 10 hours apart, like people working with San Francisco, then it gets a bit tricky. And you have to get into all sorts of processes of, maybe you don't have to have a meeting. Maybe you have an async discussion on a document. Nobody likes to write documents and documentation, but in this case, it saves you a lot of pain and a lot of hassle. You can align on a document. If it's not something urgent, you can take a couple of days, even a week. If not something critical, and then you can just comment into the document and have an alignment. And something that would have required a lot of meetings may require just half a meeting or 20 minutes and establishing and say, okay, this is what we're doing. Let's go forward.
So basically, the first initial in-person contact is
it's very important. It's very important. From a personal experience, I've seen this happening with Fitbit. I've seen this happening with the Fitbit acquisition. When we got to meet with the founders in person, we were a small team. We went to San Francisco. We got to meet the larger team. We got to meet with the people. We understand a bit about what they care about, how they, what they look for, things around this. On the total opposite side, the Google acquisition happened in the pandemic. So as you imagine, no travel, everybody was locked in, let's say, in their house across the globe, most likely. So it was much more harder. It was much more harder, and the things that could have happened in a couple of weeks took a bit more longer. So yeah.
Cool. So, Alex, you are very new, let's say, in this kind of relationship working with the West Coast, because I think you were acquired like 3-4 months ago, maybe
Just
when you
one
made
month ago.
1 month, just 1 month ago.
Very recent.
But because I'm very, I spend a lot of time time on social media. I saw a lot of things. So you did a lot of stuff. So I think you basically took the team in US, spent some days there. You went to a retreat or something. What was the experience on that?
With it, we were actually quite surprised when we received the invitation, because Alchemy decided to bring the whole Romanian team to the US, which was quite impressive. We don't have such. We have quite a large team in Romania for a startup. It's like 50 people. Of course, that's a considerable cost. It was fun. At first, I was hesitating. I couldn't see the benefit of the investment, but in the end, it was like Daniel said, meeting everybody in person. It's super valuable. So the time that we got to spend there with our colleagues now from the US was incredible. We got to know each other, surpass the cultural differences, and yeah, we also spent some time at the office and discussing technical stuff, especially through this transition when it's very important to align on certain aspects. It was incredible. So we loved it. And not only this, the party was great also. Yeah, we had a great time in the US. And one more thing, which was really important for most of the team members, it was the first interaction with US. We struggled getting everybody. Yeah, we got visas for everyone in no time, which was again very impressive, and the whole experience was great.
Nice. Thanks for sharing. And I guess it's always good to when you associate the name with the face and the way you work after you really meet the people in person. So basically, Alchemy really came with a great strategy. He took all the team there, spent some. It was like a week or something, or
Yeah, the offsite was already planned for, so it was the perfect timing actually. Getting to have some fun and also do some work. So yes, they just acted very quickly in no time. Basically, we had a couple of weeks to make everything happen.
so. Alex, you worked with a lot of setups, and
Yeah.
you saw a lot in your
Yeah.
career.
Yeah.
Which are the most important? Let's say I have two questions in one question, basically. It's one related to which are the tools that you really recommend to use to basically kind of try to reduce the gap, time zone gap, and everything, and this. And secondly, which are the key roles that you really need to have locally in Romania related to the teams, and also if you can give us some examples. Those key roles that basically without them things were not gonna really work. So
I think one of the most important tools to make it work is not necessarily a tool, it's more your commitment. Because if you think meetings, later meetings are not going to happen, that's utopia and that's wishful thinking. I've been working with the West Coast for, I would say, almost 8 years, with companies from Seattle, from San Francisco, from San Diego, and it's always the same. I think being flexible in the way you think about your working environment and your setup. I think understanding that
already saves a lot of hassle and a lot of frustration. I think for what works for me, for example, is I split my day. Usually midday I do a lot of other things, and I just don't work in that I don't know, 3-4 hour time slot. I work in the mornings and I work then in the afternoon. That works pretty well. Other than that, I think to reduce the gap and to make it work, it's I can't put my money on a specific tool, on a technology. I would say rather clarity and the role, which I think specifically for R&D centers, because whether we like to admit it or not, Romania is generally a cost center. I think the most critical role that we can have to be actually successful is product managers, product owners, because those are the people you interact with the most, from anybody overseas, that people that bring clarity to that can take decisions for vision, for strategy. And I think if I were to choose one role, that would be product presence here. I think that's the setup for success. Of course, you're going to have local leadership and all that, which is implied in an R&D center, but product to me is critical.
So currently, today at Stripe, you are kind of looking to build that, right? You try to build full teams that include product managers and also the kind of trying to take full responsibility on and ownership on some parts of
so
that you are building.
Yeah, so for Stripe, I lead the payments vertical, which includes multiple teams and multiple other smaller verticals within. It's the main product business line, and we're trying to build everything end to end here so that we can have autonomy. Even if we are not going to have, let's say, product necessarily in Romania, although we're trying, we have product in Berlin, we have product in London, which still helps quite a lot with the time zone thing. And it's a lot easier to get to Berlin, or you just like 2-hour flight. It's pretty much the same story with like with all verticals, and I lead not only EMEA based development, I also lead APAC based development, so I have under me both regions.
That's cool. So how's the interaction with APAC? Basically, they are...
Well, that's why I work mornings and evenings.
Yeah, okay,
so basically, it's not the first time I do this. I've had in the past teams in Japan and Singapore and in the US. It works. I mean, it doesn't work for everybody, because a lot of people find it that splitting your day in half, basically, and can affect performance. For me, it works. It's all about what you sign up for. So I think product, going back to where we started from, we're trying to build product also here, and we're trying to be completely autonomous. And Stripe has a strategy of like in Europe, people in Europe should build things from Europe. Now people in Europe are also building things for APAC because we don't have APAC teams, but that's a different story.
Sounds cool. So I'll move to a red question. I'll start with Daniel. Next, Alex is gonna get a red question. So Daniel, as a senior leader or top individual contributor, is it better for career growth to move to the US? In your case, why did you choose to stay in Romania?
I think it depends. If you ask if I would have been able go for the same position that I had at Google, because I left Google recently. A couple of years ago, I would say no, because that position didn't exist. I would say it depends a lot. I would say it depends a lot. There are advantages and disadvantages, and depends how you weigh them. For me personally, I've seen the potential in the early days of growth. Of course, back in the days when we started with VectorWatch, there were not a lot of funds, there were not a lot of startups, there were a few startups, and going from something to, it was a big shift of what growth happened. And it was easier, I would say, for me at that point to start in the startup world. I mean, I knew kind of the people, I knew the players. There were a lot of colleagues that I knew at that point and that joined the idea, so I think that was a good move. It also depends what you want to do. I mean, at that point, I wanted to do startups, and I also tried, as you, to join YC. I got a rejection letter, which was interesting, and I waited that was the longest email that I responded, because usually when you get rejected by YC, they say, if you do something cool, let us know, and blah, blah, blah. And I responded to that email after Vector was acquired from Fitbit. I applied with a different venture than Vector, before Vector. And they actually invited me there to just get to know them. It was pretty cool, and said that's the most respectful reply that we ever got to a rejection letter ever. Everybody, right. Founders how they are. But coming back to this, yes, I think it's harder if you want to build something internationally. It may be harder from here. That's definitely the case. And I've been in some of the discussions, and local founders are talking about raising millions of dollars. People in San Francisco, if you know the circles, are talking about billions of dollars. I mean, there's an order of magnitude. Of course, the costs are different, but there's an order of magnitude if you're in the right circles. But I think there's also a lot of potential that can happen from Romania. I would say it depends what would you like to do. It's possible. I didn't have this role. I created my role here. Especially right now with all the possibilities and other companies that are coming, there's a lot of opportunity for local leadership to emerge, even in the product, even in the engineering. I double down on the product. I would say from an engineering leader, not a product leader, that's a big emphasis that we need more product managers, because the way to build healthy centers is to build full-rounded centers where you have all the disciplines. You have product, you have engineering, you have UX, UI, another area that we need to invest a bit more than in Romania. You have QA, you have all the disciplines. And at that point, you take ownership of different pieces, or everything, depends how the engineering office has happened. And at that point, it goes truly, fully in the R&D space. So I would say it depends what you want. It's not a simple, easy answer. Everybody has to give themselves this answer during their own personal situation and context. I choose to remain in remote, to not go to the center, to stay in Romania and try to build something important here. In the future, if the question is if I'm planning to move now with the new venture, I would say no. I'm still believing in Romania and building things here.
But definitely you had in the past, I mean, former colleagues now that basically moved the opportunity, and if Fitbit or Google, they get opportunity, they move there. Do you have any type of story that says like somebody that said to you, it wasn't good that I moved, or something like that, or everybody's feeling like...
I have people that are thinking of coming back. So they're saying I'm actually reconsidering of coming back. And it has to do a lot with the culture. I mean, back home, they have a lot of friends, they have family. When you go, I mean, you're not expecting to have the same level of friendship that you would have with people that half your life or almost your life back home. And the Romanians that are abroad have Romanian groups that they're friends in between. I mean, they're still friends in their local community. I mean, it's harder to be friends with people outside of the Romanian circle and so forth. There are some cultural bridges that they need to cross at that point. But yes, I think, yeah, I have a couple of folks that I know that are pondering of coming back. Others are very happy. They're pretty integrated there. and they continue to do wonderful things abroad. So again, it's not one size fits all. In my case, I wanted to build things here and continue to build things here.
Sounds great. It's good to have you here, and you've just reassured everybody that you are still here. So that's great. Alex, same question.
Yeah.
I like that Daniel tackled more the area with the startups and everything, and even if there is a huge opportunity, you still can build things here and have the team here and everything. What about the big companies? Because you also work with
Yeah.
Amazon in the past,
Mhm.
and can you build and get to the top, like really top level, even if you are, I don't know, either individual contributor, top individual contributor, or in the top management layer, if you stay local and you're local, how do you feel about that?
I'm not sure how controversial I should get with the answer, but
Very controversial.
but the short answer is absolutely no. You cannot get to top level management. And by that, of course, there are exceptions, but those are very rare. There are unwritten rules that are being practiced, and that's more related to business continuity. And that always has to be on the left side of the Atlantic Ocean, typically. So the unwritten rules, for example, are in one of my previous employers, is that senior management is kind of like career level if you are outside of the US. There are exceptions, of course. We have one example of that this month, which is an extremely powerful thing that happened. But other than that, it's very, very rare. For let's say a director level, which is an executive type of level in big tech, to be awarded to someone in especially Eastern Europe. So I know for a fact that anybody that's in the US will be preferred for business continuity reasons in case anything happens, and because of the time zone that a lot of executives have to attend a lot of meetings. In some big tech companies, they actually go like in nuclear bunkers without underground, where they're like they don't have windows and all that, and
Just Linux.
yeah, correct. So yeah, the short answer is no. I also want to get a little bit controversial with Daniel, because I sense that he made a very clear delineation between R&D and product. I see them in the same bucket.
No. Yeah, maybe it was a miscommunication.
Yeah.
It's on the same product, it's on the same bucket, but yeah, I agree with you, it needs more investment locally.
Yeah. And I have a recommendation to make there. Marty Kagan, Inspired and Empowered. Two super strong reads. Anybody that's interested in product engineering, go for it.
Thank you, and thanks for being so very
Yeah.
open and honest. I think this is definitely great, and everybody will.
I know a lot of people that are really strong leaders that have been deliberately, skipped in the line of promotion just because of proximity to Seattle.
But can you, I mean, can you go there for a year or two?
Yes.
Get promoted, come back with more projects and stuff like that?
Yes,
there is a loophole. I mean,
you can, but typically when you go there, so I know folks that were told point blank, if you want to make it to the executive level, you have to relocate here. They said no, then it didn't happen. So that's a precondition, let's say. In most cases, again, I don't.
Yeah.
There are exceptions, not very many of them, but there are. You can, of course. However, when you tap into let's say, that piece of pie, when you make it to that level, then you want more, and more, it's also there. So I don't think if you go there at an executive level, I don't think you're coming back until you retire. That's my opinion.
Thank you. So, because Alex just raised the level of honesty very, very high. Alex.
I was being very polite.
So, Alex, be honest. Did your company, I'm talking about Alchemy, open an office in Romania because of lower labor costs compared to the US? Or is there a real strategic vision behind it? You are very fresh with this, so why did you get acquired? Like, what's their plan?
Yeah, so of course, cutting costs matters. So it is not something to be disregarded when a US company acquires a Europe-based one, especially at this level, both being startups in the industry. But there are other aspects which weigh maybe heavier in the decision-making process. And one of them is getting access to talented engineers here. So I do believe that Romania has a lot to offer in terms of engineering knowledge and talent. And we did a good job convincing the Alchemy leadership that that's true. Another aspect, and this is a more strategic decision. Alchemy was very concentrated in the US markets. At the moment, there are only two offices, one in San Francisco and the other one in New York. And a big part of Alchemy's clients were in the US as well. This is because the product characteristics. So it was a very important decision to expand to Europe, and Alchemy being in an accelerated growth path at the moment. And the next step probably will be to go even further to the APAC area. It was quite interesting because I was involved in the process from the beginning, from when we first initiated the conversation in this direction of getting acquired. I was with one of the other co-founders in attending a conference in Denver, and we met there. Very unexpected. We met there with Alchemy founders, and it was obvious from the beginning that this is the path they are pursuing, acquiring us. And they were actually very honest about it in terms of what is important for them. They had huge costs. We had the knowledge to reduce those costs. So, of course, this is very important. But then again, expanding, if a company wants to go global, there are not that many options. So acquiring another smaller company in the area they want to expand on, it's very common thing.
Yeah, I also want to share something related to this topic. So we have a customer, they just did a IPO on NASDAQ, like not, I mean, in the States, not here. And a customer also from California. And basically, at some point back in the days, I think 4 or 5 years ago, maybe even more, they decided to open an office in Ukraine, and then the Ukrainian war started, and basically this is how we got in. So basically, one of the largest teams that they have is in Europe, in Central Eastern Europe, is related to Softbinator. But I asked them, like, what was the decision? Because now I know you already saw that in Eastern Europe you have you can find great engineers and everything, and but originally you only had engineers in US, and then you decide to move to Ukraine. What was the reason? Like, did you have any link to Ukraine or something? They said we kind of had, because we had some engineers that were coming from, they were Ukrainians, and but working from the States. But the reason was that, you might say it was about the cost, but the real reason was that we couldn't find talent in Silicon Valley. It became such hard back in those years to find good talent there, and of course stay in the budget as well, but really find the talent. So they were like, man, we have to recruit now 20, 30, 100 engineers moving forward. It's going to take us years to recruit that talent here, so we have to do something. So one of the reasons they actually came to Eastern Europe was because they couldn't find talent. So they just want to share that, even if nobody asked me this question, but that's my style anyway. So I have a question for Daniel. It was really
A red one,
uh,
mild one.
You're getting all the red questions.
Let's say it's
It's okay because I left. I mean, I can spill the beans. So
the question is how many. It's a red one. And I ask the other question after. How many hours are I mean, it was in the past, but your former Romanian employees sacrificing from their personal lives, accommodating US meeting schedules? And do you feel like this is sustainable, or are the people burning out in general?
I have two answers to this. So it depends on the culture and the teams. What I pushed a lot was to people to try to manage their own schedule. Start later in the day. If you have something going, if you have an incident, I mean, apart from, let's say, the incident in production and stuff like that, that's normal in any company that works on any time zone. You have to stay until it's fixed, and then you get, time in lieu, and you get also paid depending on the policies. But apart from that, if you had meetings or if you have things like this, depending on the level of meetings, if it was something extraordinary, then you'll get time to rest or something like that. But otherwise, everybody had this directive of trying to manage and find a balance for themselves. If you had to go later, I had to go later as local leadership in the day. I was usually trying to free up my morning and starting later at 11, or I would have a gap of 2-3 hours in my working schedule that I would do something else, not related to work during that day, either going to the gym, either trying to do some errands. That being said, there is still a toll. It's a different effort of being successful. So if you take two positions, it's a bigger effort of being successful from Romania than being successful at HQ, because you have to sacrifice some, let's say, later hours. Even if you can get those earlier hours, if those later hours are important for you, it's a bigger sacrifice than colleagues that are in the same time zone. So it's a bit harder for that point. I cannot give you a number, but of course there are folks that sacrifice later hours of the day, even if they got earlier, or for some of them, this worked perfectly. So I know people that are night owls, and they were perfectly with the schedule. I mean, they had issues in other jobs because they were required them to get at 9 a.m. And here, I can start work at 12, 11. I mean, I don't care. It's the perfect job. I mean, it was a dream job. Others, it's important for them to make it work, and we try to offer the flexibility and the ways for them to make the best out of it. But of course, when this scales, I mean, you'll have in a team night owls, early morning folks, and so forth. There's going to be some sacrifices because some of them may like it, others may find it harder to fit it in their schedule. So there were some sacrifices there. To your next question, sorry, I forgot about it. You had a follow-up.
No, I have a follow-up on this. So basically, your last position at Google was director of engineering.
Yeah. An executive
being in a
that you said that they're not.
being in that position, how would you rate this, like from very often to quite rare? I would say how you rate this question. How many times did you are basically forced to, not forced by somebody, but it was very important and mandatory for you to join a call that was after 11 p.m. your time here?
After 11 p.m.?
Yeah.
Not that often. So no, outside no. I mean, going later, of course, incidents, stuff like that, outside of the table. But for recurrent meetings or for things like this, it was mostly if I really wanted to join. I was optional entirely at that point. Sometimes the FOMO gets in and you kind of have to join even if you are not required to join, because you want to be able to represent your team the best way possible. So because the team gets the information through you and you have to be in those discussions. but it's not something that folks were pretty understanding and they were not imposing. I mean, as much as possible, the meetings were recorded and shared. If there were not things that were pretty sensitive, notes were taken from some of those critical meetings and they were shared out. Otherwise, my manager that was at HQ was joining those meetings and informing me the next day or when we are having a one-on-one that if that thing was not that critical. So I don't know if you're expecting a different answer to that. But
no, it's a very good one. You're sharing the truth. So
that was my truth. Now again, taking incidents aside or critical things or COVID happened and we need everybody to get together, to see what we do and stuff like that. So taking the critical stuff out, that was not the case.
Right. So Alex,
yeah,
a question for you. It's a mild one. It's on positive stuff. So when thinking about building international R&D centers, which countries or cities do you consider, and why is Romania, Bucharest at the top of the list? Romania or Bucharest?
Yeah, I think within Europe, the number of skilled individuals that you can find here is higher. The level of English knowledge and fluency is very high. That carries a lot of weight to a lot of people and a lot of investors. And also the time zone helps quite a lot, specifically because I have encountered this mindset of, people in Europe should build things for Europe instead of people in North America or somewhere else, which helps. And I think the fact that we still have quite a good level of free education, free higher education. I think that helps a lot Bucharest and Romania in general to be up there when it comes to European tech scenes.
So in terms of basically Central Eastern Europe, do you think like Romania really should be the first option for?
I think, but I've seen in the past few years Poland growing quite a lot and catching up a lot of ground.
Okay, so I'll move to the red question then. It's also for you, Daniel. Just relate to what I was just chatting here with Alex. So, what country or tech hub possesses a real threat to Romania's growing influence and why, based on your experience? Because I think of Google, also at Fitbit, but especially at Google, you have a bigger has offices all around the world. So
you have a bigger oversight of what things are happening and where. I'll pick back on what you've said. Yes, I think the fact. Let's start with the strengths. The ability, every people from US when they're coming here, then we're seeing that everybody speaks English pretty well, including in services, in the taxi and so forth. They were pretty impressed. Oh my God! I mean, what's happening? I mean, what you're doing? And we explained that and that, cartoons in the past were not necessarily doubled in Romania. So that just aside, I think kids are starting from kindergarten and so on and so forth, and the English penetration it's pretty well. We have a very high density. I think I don't know the numbers, but pretty high up of engineers per capita. That's another very important thing. We have a strong history in building computers. I mean, we're the 7th in the world, I think, or something like that, of creating our own computer back in the day. And we have, this engineering CS major that they're starting also in high schools. They have informatics and stuff like that. So those are a lot of the advantages. We have also good representation of female in tech throughout that, usually people are impressed. It's 30 something.
It's really amazing.
Yeah, it's really amazing. I mean, in my computer science class in university, we're kind of 50-50 at a certain point. So that's also very strong. Now, from a region perspective, I also have seen that Poland is growing. Now, if you ask me, Poland may be getting oversaturated because it's like in the stock market where everybody sees a good, let's say, place and everybody rushes therein, the prices will go up, the talent will go down. I know that there were people, or at least in Google, there were people that were getting from outside of the country, from India, that were recruited to Poland. Now the question is how much they would have stayed in Poland. My honest guess was that they were staying for a year and then getting relocated to US. I think Romania is still a bit of a hidden gem. People, I mean, outside companies that it's not on the, let's say, if you go to Google and search for where should I build an office, maybe it's not the first result. But people that had ties with Romania, like, it happened with you, it happened with us with Vector, it happened also with the acquisition. I mean, Google acquired Fitbit. They could have closed the office, but they seen the potential and double down on investing into it. I mean, once they're seeing this, there's a lot of advantages that convince somebody to continue to invest. We have to advertise it a bit better, I would say. We also have to invest a bit more in the infrastructure so that we have a city that welcomes also expats, because at a certain point we like to have a hub, not only from the people in Romania, but bring in the big cities people from outside. Why not?
Right, and I think you named Poland as not a threat, but it's one of the
I would say yes,
and I think it's the largest market.
Yeah, I would say Poland.
I think they relate to what you just said. They did a great job in attracting because of this nightmare in Ukraine, but they attracted a lot of Ukrainians in.
They also had governments. They also had the digital nomad visas. I mean, also their government was pushing a lot on creating this, and I think it matters. But yeah, and they're still emerging. I mean, they haven't fully grown, and I think that's a competitor. Some other competitor may be India. India is growing a lot. I know also that a lot of executives that were in US are coming back to let's say, are going back to India. I would say it's also because of the growth. Usually if office grows, then there are more leadership positions and there's more opportunities. So if there are a lot of growth from, let's say, established companies in India, then there are executives that are relocating back to India, or they're taking projects to India back home. So maybe that's also another let's say, contender. But again, for somebody that goes in Europe, I would say Poland at this point.
Thank you.
I want to add something to that.
Sure.
Actually, I think the reason behind Poland's growth is the political class and the political system and the political changes that have happened since the elections there. I wouldn't put it necessarily on the the massive influx of Ukrainian engineers, because in Amazon, for example, we had a lot of teams in Poland that had no Polish people and no Ukrainian people at all. So it's really easy to do immigration there. In Amazon, we were seeing immigration times grow from 3 to 6 months before pandemic to 12 to 14 months. The last experience that I had was 14 months. So yeah.
Same experience on my side. I hired somebody, then hired the full positions, then half a year went by, another couple of months went by, and then I saw somebody in the office and said, I hired you a year and something ago. So yeah, immigration is something that I know Google and other companies are pushing to be a bit more fast-tracked, to not take 3 to 6 months, to try to keep it to 3 to 4 months. I think that's good. It's also depends on the company, but also due to some of the internal processes that may take longer. So it's not only on the government, but it's a common thing that we big companies and the government need to work better on.
But we have elections this year, and we'll change.
Yeah.
This new wave of elections, and
until the elections, we'll change everything.
Yeah.
Right. So last question for Alex, and then we'll take questions from the audience. time really flies. So it's almost 1 hour since we started. So it's more related cultural differences as how that plays a critical role. Basically, we just started this experience with Alchemy, and I'm curious when you got there with your team, and after you got back and you started to debrief and talk with your colleagues and everything. Is there something related to the US culture that you weren't expecting to see, and you feel like that's gonna be a not a threat, but something hard to manage? And
I think that's a
do you have any
possibility.
plan on solving that if you already found something like that?
So we haven't yet. It's too soon to tell. We're still in the process of aligning with our colleagues from the US, but that's a possibility. At some point, we might hit some cultural differences that will slow down our work or could have different kind of impacts. But so far, so good. Actually, I was very surprised. I was actually afraid of this. I was scared they will see us as a threat, and that's a very high possibility to happen. It hasn't happened yet. We collaborate very good with them at this point. But yeah, there might be some cultural differences which we'll have to think about and work our way through them.
Cool. So I'm just gonna continue with these questions, and then we'll take questions. I'm just curious about you, Daniel. So I think obviously it's really a red one. All the red questions go to you anyway. So I think it was for sure the case at some point somebody in the companies that you previously worked with decided move the budget to Romania and kind of reduce the team there. Did you feel any hard feelings, like somebody tried to block you on that, something that hindered that, or it is what it is? And
Of course. No, I mean, look, I had some interviews of managers and so on and so forth, and I had managers that were coming to me and they were saying they hate politics, and I was saying, tell me more. Why I was asking this? Because a manager has to know politics, not the kind of backstabbing politics that you may. I mean, usually in our culture, if you talk about politics, you talk about something negative. No, a manager has to navigate politics because, for example, all of the teams are battling for finite resources. A company, regardless of how big it is, has finite resources, which means you have to influence other people and other managers to give you some of the resources as apart from other managers. So it's not something that somebody has against you and so on and so forth. Is that's the game that you need to play. And you have to understand the actors and you have to understand how to put things. And I was pretty young at that point and I didn't understand this, but I learned that in the time. There were some ruffling of feathers, I would say. Usually you have objective reasons, but you then have subjective reasons, especially depending also on the people and the personality. I try personally to approach it pretty open and talk about, look, how to do things together going forward and how to build on each other's strength and how to make the pie greater. And focusing on making the pie greater and not fighting on the pie that gets smaller, I think it's something that helped a lot and helped also a lot on the centers of trying to come together. And yes, if you're in a position where this happens and you get a bit more attacked, you have to turn the other cheek and let it go and try to build the trust again, or start building the trust if it happens exactly at the get-to-go, because it's not something that you have to care about the other person, but you will be better off if you do it. That's why peace is better than war universally. Usually in war, a lot of people, there's a winning side and a losing side, and altogether everybody loses. It's the same on this side. Try to find the common ground. And yeah, with some people it's a bit more harder because they're stubborn and you have to turn the other cheek a lot more times. With other people it's a bit more easier because they understand it and they see it.
perfect. Thank you so much. And let's give to all the three amazing speakers a round of applause, and then Let's move to. Okay. Let's move to questions from the audience.
Red questions.
Red, only red questions, of course.
Some people are saying that Romania is becoming a bit too expensive in regards to Rizea salaries and all that. Have you felt that in your different companies, or is that not true?
Okay, I'll repeat the question just to be sure it's on the mic as well. So basically, the question is related to the fact that people are saying that at least lately the salary started to increase pretty, with a higher, much higher rate, and basically Romanians kind of become very expensive. And if you have this an opinion on this, and what's your experience with the labor cost lately, and if it's still competitive or not? I think that's the question, right?
Yeah.
I think it's still competitive, and I don't think it will be anything else in the short term or even medium term. As long as big companies, we see them continuing to open up roles here. They continue to talk about headcount convergence, uh, between US to Eastern Europe and things like that. We're still competitive, and I would argue that in the past 1 or 2 years, we're even more competitive than India, for example. And I have some numbers to back that up. Um, but I don't see a threat here. There's a lot more talent on the market, especially in the past 10 years, which might make jobs or roles harder to land, which increases the competition. And some people maybe are led to believe that Romania is becoming more expensive, but ultimately, good people and solid talent is expensive anywhere, not just Romania or the US or India, everywhere. It depends what you want.
You want to add something, Alex, or Daniel?
I think it depends also on the expectations of the salary, but I double down on that. I don't think we are above market, the local market. I also want to acknowledge the fact that we're not pretty low on the European market also. It's just that there's more talent here present. I mean, I have friends that have companies that they're working with folks in Denmark and so on and so forth, that they were telling me about the salaries, and I'm telling, look, they kind of have the same, but the housing costs there are criminal. So I would say it's a good time to be in Romania from a European perspective as a software developer. What will happen in the future? Yeah, it's to be seen.
So Alex, actually, I'll take that question and use it against you as a red question. Sorry. The question is basically when you went to the acquisition process in the due diligence at some point, what a specific step, doesn't matter which is the step, when that happened, but definitely during due diligence you had to reveal the cost with the salaries and everything. And what was their impression? Like they were shocked, wow, too high or too low, or if you can share that, or it was exactly how they research and.
So of course they did their own research. They had a dedicated team here to research the market and give them data on that. They were impressed. We actually paid very well compared to the market averages, our employees. And we pushed very hard to balance the bands and align them to the bands in the US to make sense for us, actually. And I think we did a pretty good job. I will not disclose. I will choose to maintain our advantage on the market.
Good for you. Good for you. Congrats on that.
Thank you.
Other questions? Yes, Stefan. Before asking, I'll just announce everybody if the question is too way too uncomfortable, I'm not gonna take it because I know you very well. So, okay.
Seen in the past when working with teams that basically from different countries, that doesn't really matter, but it applies to US as well. It's at some point, especially when something difficult happens, they might a thing happens which is the team might split into, which is a us versus them mentality, which I think it's even worse when that happens with one side of the team. So my question is, how do you deal with this? Because I'm sure you had to deal with it at some point.
So basically, the question is like, who is taking the blame and how when something bad happens? And
it's about at some point when something bad happens, or even when things are rough in the team, people might start thinking, they are trying to blame it on us, or they are trying to do, which usually doesn't really happen, but it's a mentality that just appears, and I think that breaks teams apart. So
yeah,
how do you deal with
okay, so the question is related to that mentality that sometimes when something bad happens, people from here are working, of course, in cross teams across the globe. People from here feel like they are blamed for the bad things that are happening in the team.
The tricky part to this is that once it happens, it's harder to do things about it if you haven't done things before it happened that will make it easier to manage that. And I'll say what I was talking about, having that trust, having that people meeting each other. Usually if you know somebody, and I'm talking this for the entire team, not just, let's say, leadership or management or so forth, you are a bit more slower to jump to bad conclusions. It's in our nature to jump and assume the worst, because I'm not going to go into the survival kind of bias. It's easier, I mean, you're more safer if you assume the worst than you assume the best and then you get eaten by a lion or something. So that kind of bias is there with us. If you know the other person, you're jumping less to conclusion. I've seen this with engineers. Oh my God, he responded with that language with me on a PR, and then they meet and they have a beer, and then he knows that he has a few words that he uses when he responds to PRs, and then he understands, okay, that's how the person works, and he doesn't assume that it has something with his code or something like that. So I've seen this 100 times. Now, creating that trust, creating that thing helps more, plus trying to have this blameless kind of culture that then has to be enforced by leadership, so that all the leaders should have the same things around trust and open channels of communication, and they have to locally push for the right thing. I mean, they have to stop the hypothesis of people jumping fast to conclusions and say, look, let's get together, let's analyze what happened, let's draw the conclusion, and then as a team, let's improve things and make sure that that never happens. Usually this is done in postmortem, so on and so forth. So there's a lot of things that need to happen before. If those are not existing and this happens, it's a lot harder to build the trust when there are things in between that needs to get solved. So if that hasn't happened, it's good for let's say leaders or leadership to get together, air some of the bad air out, and try to build from that point and try to present their perspective and get a common ground, which is the good of the company. I would say, hey, we're all in this together, we want to build this, let's join forces, let's see how we can get better.
I have a different opinion on that.
Okay.
I don't think it's necessarily something, at least from what I've experienced so far. And it's fine. I mean, we don't have to. We can agree to disagree. I see it more of, at least from my experiences. Sorry, I see it more of a middle management problem and a cultural issue rather than a leadership. And by leadership, I mean VP, SVP level, stuff like that, executives, basically. Because if middle management doesn't have that positivity, that drive to find a solution, and the blaming culture is there, once the company kind of embraces the blaming culture, I think it's very, very difficult to shake it off. It's always going to be there in a shape or form. until something big happens or something drastically, changes. But the way I see it, the leadership getting together, talking about people problems, people maybe they see as resources or as numbers or as they don't even know their names in many cases because you can't possibly know like the names of hundreds of thousands of people. I see it more of a middle management issue rather than that. That's my opinion, and it comes down to different experiences and things that we've seen. So I would say, and that's typical. Even the way you framed the question is a very very typical Eastern European type of concern of us versus them. I have encountered us versus them, especially with people from Texas, but not necessarily with people from the West Coast. So it's a human trait eventually, and it's a cultural thing rather than something that happens in a company.
Now, if you want to get into all the balances of it, I mean, us versus them is a powerful tool of rallying people. So it depends. I mean, look at in the politics, right? Somebody finds, an enemy and they go after it, and the parallel state or something like that. Nobody knows what that means, but get some folks rallied against it. So there's, you also have to be smart and debug at why it's happening. So this is next level thinking of looking at the environment and thinking, is this a fluke? Is this somebody's playing power games? Leadership may be playing power games.
True.
So you never know. But I would say if you want to avoid that, blameless culture, creating trust, getting people together and say, okay, let's fix it. We're a team. We're thinking as one.
Perfect. Guys, thanks so much for sharing all these amazing insights. And personally, I'm very grateful because I learned a lot from you today, and it was for free. So I really love that. We'll continue with other free stuff like food, drinks, and other things, and of course, a great networking session. Thanks everybody for attending this edition of Talks by Softbinator. Is the edition number 180. So it's been amazing, and now we'll continue to do it more often. So looking forward to have you here for the next edition, 181 edition. Till then, let's continue with the networking, and thanks again for being here.